And now, in studio, bringing his Midwest values from the Show Me State to the land of San Diego. He's a triple threat, licensed as an attorney, mortgage broker, and a top producing realtor who's crushing the competition. Here to deliver you what's happening in the trenches of the market. Your host, Michael Gaddis.
MichaelGaddis.com and FrontierLoanGroup.com. I have a very special guest today. I have Michelle Herrera from Michael Gaddis Realty Group. How are you doing today, Michelle?
I'm good, Michael. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So one of the reasons I asked you to come on today, Michelle, is because I want to talk a little bit about buyers and the importance of buyers and being educated in the home buying process. You know, I took a couple of buyers to show homes this weekend in Oceanside, and I was really kind of amazed because we stopped by a couple open houses. I was really amazed at the number of buyers that are actually out there right now looking for homes. But I will tell you, a lot of them do not have the education or understanding of the overall process. One of my other agents in my office, she had an open house this weekend, and she talked to a lot of the people that attended her open house, and she was amazed by how many people really don't understand the process and are kind of confused about what happens from beginning to end in the sales process. Do you find, Michelle, that when you have buyers that, you know, they're also in need of education and knowledge as far as the process is concerned?
Yeah, of course. You see that pretty often. People kind of come into it and they really don't know where to go or where to begin or what they need, and then suddenly they're hit with, if they've already looked for an approval or gotten approved, and then they don't even know what the next step is. So that happens a lot.
Well, how many people do you think, I mean, in my opinion, when you're buying a home, the first thing you need to do is find a lender and make sure that you're pre-approved. I mean, there's so many buyers that call our office that just say, hey, I'm interested in this house, and if you ask them if they've been pre-approved, they say no. And how do you even know, one, that you can qualify to buy a house, and two, how do you know how much money you can borrow, so what you should be looking at? And I mean, and to me, that's the most important part of the process. Would you agree?
Yeah, of course. So a lot of people just think that, okay, I'm going to get this 3-bedroom home and that's it. And then, so the biggest thing is go and get yourself pre-approved before you fall in love with any home, because then you're going to be very dissettled.
Well, I think that's true, because it could work either way, because you might be looking at homes and you might be able to afford more home, or you might be looking at homes too much for you, and then you could be very unsettling when you have to go down a little bit and start looking at a different style of house.
Yeah, how many times have you gotten like a client coming to you, and they want the $600,000 home, and long and behold, they're nowhere near able to qualify.
No, nowhere near it. And so I think that what it comes down to is expectations about what the home buying process is and how much you can afford. So once you establish that, there's a lot more than just going out and getting a real estate professional and saying, okay, find me a home. You really have, it's a lot more involved process. And one of the things that we are starting to do up at Michael Gaddis Realty Group is we're starting to have home buyer workshops a lot. And what we want to do is educate people, not just as far as buying houses, but the whole process in totality, including how do you obtain financing. If so, where should you be looking for houses? What are the things you should be concerned about? Because when you go to look at a house, let's say you're looking for a house and you walk into a house, like the buyers I had this weekend, the first thing I go through it, and when I notice is, oh look, the windows are not replacement windows, they're original single pane windows. You might think about having to upgrade those in the future. And oh look, the eaves look like they might maybe have some sort of termite damage, and we have to make sure we address that. There's a lot of things that you need to address. Here's another one that a lot of people don't know about: polybutylene pipes. Does the house have PVC piping, or does it have copper piping? And there's so many things that you have to be aware of.
Really big cost that can
huge cost.
Sure.
And what's sad in that situation is a lot of times most people don't find out that it has that type of piping until they get into their inspection. They hire an inspector. The inspector goes in the attic and comes back and says, oh, it has that piping, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that.
And even if once they tell them, they still don't even know what that means.
That's right, and then they have to do research and find out, and then of course it becomes a negotiation, because obviously you don't want to take on that risk, because the seller's opinion is most of the time, well, it's been working for me the whole time.
Yeah, I moved it for
Yeah,
20 years,
I've
it's
lived
been fine.
exactly. I've lived with it for 20 years. Why should I, pay for you to get your, the copper pipes? I didn't do that for myself. But that's what comes up a lot. So
Yeah.
part of the workshops that we're going to be putting on, and Michelle's going to be part of these workshops, is basically educating people from A to Z. Now, we have the advantage over a lot of people because I'm at the seminars myself, and because of my legal background, my finance background, and my real estate background, I become like the quintessential, workshop leader when it comes to this. Because after you leave a workshop, a Michael Gaddis Realty Group workshop, I guarantee you will know more than 99% of the people out there. You will know everything from financing to what you should be looking at when you view houses. You'll find out what you should be looking at when you're putting your contract together, and you'll probably very quickly find out that you might even know more than the agent you're working with. I mean, it's the truth.
That could happen.
It's true. So I mean, we get a lot of leads, and they call in and they say, "Hey, I'm interested in this particular house or that particular house." And one of the first things we like to do is when they call in our offices, we like to talk to them about, "Hey, how are you getting financed?" Now, a lot of people don't like to hear that initially. They just want to go see houses. They don't necessarily want to, well, why are you asking me about my financing? Well, because financing is what drives purchases. Unless you happen to have $500,000-$600,000 in your bank account that you're going to pay all cash, you're going to need to get a loan, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, so I mean, and I think dealing with people's expectations is really important.
Yeah.
So it really is. So you're listening to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. I am Michael Gaddis at michaelgaddis.com and frontierloangroup.com. I am here with Michelle Herrera of Michael Gaddis Realty Group, and we are talking about home buying workshops. So Michelle, I mean, when you take somebody out, and let's say, I mean, how many houses do you typically show? When a buyer comes to see you, how many houses do you typically show?
It really just depends on the buyer and how educated they are and how much they've really sat down and realized like what's important to them and how once they're there. Some people have no idea what they want or what they can afford or what they're looking for really, and other buyers are a little more knowledgeable and they're very specific to what they want, and it can take one trip or it could take a few. It's a good hit or miss.
Well, I think that's my experience as well. Sometimes like I have these buyers I was showing on Saturday. I've been working with them now for 3.5 months. So we've been going out, once or twice a week, looking at 2 or 3 houses at a time, trying to find a house. We actually just put an offer in this weekend on a house that they liked, and there were 4 or 5 offers, and we didn't get the house. And part of the reason was we actually went over the asking price, but somebody went substantially over the asking price. It went so far over the asking price that the agent basically said that there was no need to do a counteroffer when I questioned it. So, that's the other thing you're finding. The inventory is kind of low right now.
Mm-hmm.
So with the houses that are out there that are like the best houses, the ones that people love, they're getting multiple offers. Now I'm talking about houses with views, houses that have been completely renovated, or houses with large lots. Those are the ones that seem to be getting a lot of activity. So if the house that you're looking at seems special to you, it probably seems special to somebody else.
People.
Yeah, so you really need to kind of get an idea of how you want to present your offer and
Realize how much do you actually want that home, because last week specifically it happened where a lot of my buyers they're throwing in these low balls and then they're not getting accepted, and after they're not accepted they're like, wow, I really wanted that home. And so you really have to come in with strong offers from the beginning.
Well, I think you bring up a really good point, and that was exactly where I was going. Is that when you're making these offers, you need to keep in mind that as you said, if you think it's special, somebody else thinks it's special, and if you really love it, you're going to have to make an aggressive offer. You can't say, well, let's try. If they're asking $520, let's go in at $500.
See where it's gonna go.
Yeah, you
there's
can't.
really not that much
Yeah.
out there for you to
Yeah, you throw, put your best offer out there and see what happens, because it's not in a time where you're the only person out there. You're not the only game in town. There are a lot of people out there looking for houses now, and so that's the advice I give my clients. Now, next time we find a house they really love, we're going to have to be extremely aggressive on.
We're gonna have to do the same thing.
That's right. We're going to have to do the same thing,
And now
really,
they felt it.
that's right,
They
because
just
otherwise.
lost their home that
That's
they
right.
wanted.
Otherwise, what's going to happen? Now we're going to have to spend a long time finding another house that they love as much as this one.
Yeah.
So, a lot of that's just,
It's very strategic.
it's very strategic, and a lot of times it takes, maybe experiencing a loss like this
It does.
to help
hit
push
home
you, to hit home, to push you in the right
and make
direction.
you understand.
Now, I think that these workshops that we're going to be having, these these home buyer workshops, they're geared towards anybody who is looking, whether you own a home already and you are thinking about buying another house, in other words, whether you're an experienced home buyer or a new home buyer, these workshops will definitely provide you with information. They're going to provide you with information on how comps are giving, how do we determine price on properties, how should you be looking at a property. You know, the goal is not to get you in a position where you're not going to be one of those people who's not realistic in when you're putting in offers, because it can get really frustrating really fast. So finding out and making sure that, you know, finding out how you should be shopping for your loan, what type of loan should you be getting, you know, and then moving into the searching for properties, and then how to put together a really good offer. I mean, I know that people have agents and that they rely on their agents, but I believe that you should have a certain level of knowledge and education when it comes to the process as well, so that you can have a more educated, you know, conversation with your buying agent when you're ready to purchase a property. Otherwise, you're just completely relying on them, and it doesn't hurt for you to know the process. And then we also talk a little bit about the workshops, about what to do during the actual you know, during escrow, what you should be looking for during your inspections, what type of inspection should you be asking for, why are you asking for these types of inspections.
Yeah, I think it's really important. Those home inspections, half the people don't even read them. You know what I mean? And
No, I know. Or they rely,
or they don't know how to read them.
or they rely on their
the
agents.
agent.
And there's other things you should be doing, like when should you be going to the city and investigating things if you have an unpermitted structure?
Yeah.
When should you be, you know, looking at the environmental report? You know, what's the clue report and why is it important? There's so many different things that you don't know, that you don't want to find out later that you had the opportunity to do those things and you just didn't do it, or your agent didn't push you to do it. So that's what the workshop's for. The workshop's to educate you on what you should be doing, what you should be expecting, and to give you a general timeline as far as how the process goes from beginning to end. So, you know, I think that it's to your advantage, and you can find out about those workshops by, you know, you can even contact Michelle here. Michelle's email address is michelle@michaelgaddis.com. Michelle@michaelgaddis.com.
MICHELLE@michaelgaddis.com.
And, you know, or you can email me at michael@michaelgaddis.com. Either way, we'll be there for you to try to, you know, get you hooked up into one of our reverse mortgage workshops. So after the break, we're going to talk a little bit more with Michelle Herrera and a little bit about reverse mortgages. You're listening to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170, The Answer.